after discovering my elderly mom in tears over constant harassment from our power-hungry neighbor Patricia, I decided to put my multi-millionaire resources to work and uncover the corrupt secrets, destroying our peaceful community. But when my investigation revealed something far more sinister than petty rule enforcement, would Patricia's reign of terror finally meet its match against someone who could truly fight back? Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA stories. The day everything changed started like any other Sunday morning. I was video chatting with Mom while she proudly showed me her award-winning roses, the same garden she'd tended for 30 years in our peaceful suburban neighborhood. That's when I first heard the shrill voice through Mom's phone. "Excuse me, but those roses are clearly violating Section 8.2 of the HOA bylaws." Mom's hands trembled as she turned the camera, revealing our new neighbor Patricia Wheeler, standing there in her pressed beige pantsuit, with a measuring tape in one hand and her phone in the other, already taking pictures. I watched helplessly as this woman I'd never met started lecturing my 72-year-old mother about how her beloved roses were exactly half an inch too close to the sidewalk. "I've just been elected HOA president," Patricia announced with a smug smile, "and I'm going to restore proper standards to this neighborhood." She waved her measuring tape like a weapon. "You have 48 hours to move these roses back, or you'll be fined $100 per day." I tried staying calm. "Mom, don't worry. I'll handle the fines." Running a successful tech company meant I could easily afford them. I figured throwing money at the problem would make it go away. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. The roses were just the beginning. Within a week, Patricia found 3 more violations. Mom's vintage mailbox that Dad had installed before he passed away was suddenly not up to community standards. The wind chimes Mom used to track wind direction for her gardening were deemed noise pollution. Even the garden gnome collection she'd gathered over decades was labeled tacky lawn ornaments that needed immediate removal. Each morning, Patricia would do her inspection walks, ruler and camera in hand. She'd stop at Mom's house longer than anywhere else, taking measurements and photos from every angle. Other neighbors started whispering about how she seemed fixated on our property, but nobody dared stand up to her. They'd seen what happened to the Johnson family. When they questioned one of Patricia's violations, their appeals were mysteriously lost and the fines doubled. I was in the middle of a huge company merger, flying between meetings in different cities. Every time I landed, there'd be another email from Patricia with a new violation notice. Mom tried handling it herself, but her arthritis made it hard to keep up with Patricia's endless demands. She started skipping her beloved garden club meetings, too embarrassed about all the violations. The breaking point came when Mom called me in tears. Patricia had posted photos of our non-compliant property on the neighborhood Facebook group, calling it an eyesore that was destroying property values. Seeing my mother's garden, her pride and joy, labeled as neighborhood shame, broke something inside me. What Patricia didn't know was that while she was playing dictator with her measuring tape, I was finalizing the sale of my company. She thought she was dealing with a busy son who could just keep paying fines to make problems disappear. She had no idea she was poking a bear with resources not just to fight back, but to completely change the game. That night, as I booked a flight home, I got an email from Patricia with a contractor's quote for mandatory landscaping improvements totaling $23,000. She'd helpfully attached a list of approved contractors, all coincidentally charging 3 times the normal rate. I smiled as I typed my response. "Dear Mrs. Wheeler, I'll be addressing these concerns in person. See you soon." Little did Patricia know, I wasn't just coming home with a checkbook. I was coming with a plan, and her perfect little power trip was about to meet its match. The morning started with another certified letter in Mom's mailbox. My heart sank as I watched her hands shake while opening it. The 5th notice this month. Patricia Wheeler, our next-door neighbor and HOA president, had really ramped up her campaign against us. This time she claimed Mom's American flag was mounted 2 inches too low, and we had exactly 48 hours to fix it or face a $500 fine. I helped Mom to her favorite chair and made her some tea, while she told me about yesterday's incident. Patricia had stood in our driveway for 30 minutes, taking photos of Mom's prized roses and measuring the height of each bush with a ruler. When Mom tried to ask what she was doing, Patricia just snapped, "If you can't maintain your property to HOA standards, maybe you should consider moving to a retirement home." The next day, flyers appeared in everyone's mailbox about a special emergency HOA meeting to address serious property violations threatening our community's values. Patricia had carefully timed it for when I was supposed to be in Japan, closing the biggest deal of my career. But what she didn't know was that I'd been secretly recording every interaction and keeping a detailed log of her harassment. That afternoon, while helping Mom with her garden, I noticed Patricia hosting what looked like a tea party in her backyard. Mrs. Anderson and Mrs. Thompson from the HOA board were there, along with several other neighbors. Through the fence, I could hear Patricia's shrill voice. "It's such a shame about Eleanor's house. You know, my realtor friend says properties like that could drop our home values by 15%. I checked Mom's security cameras that evening and discovered Patricia had been coming onto our property at night, moving Mom's potted plants slightly over the property line, then taking photos the next day as evidence of violations. My blood boiled watching her deliberately set us up, but I kept my cool. I needed more proof. The following week, while Patricia was at work, I hired a professional landscaping company to completely redo Mom's garden. Everything was exactly to HOA specifications. I'd memorized every rule in their 160-page handbook. The look on Patricia's face when she came home was priceless. She stood in her driveway for nearly an hour, desperately measuring and photographing, trying to find violations that no longer existed. But Patricia wasn't done. She started posting about Mom on the neighborhood Facebook group, claiming she'd seen rats near our bird feeder. When other neighbors defended Mom, those posts mysteriously disappeared. Soon, anonymous complaints about their properties started, appearing in their mailboxes too. I was in the middle of a video conference with potential investors when Mom called me in tears. Patricia had convinced the HOA board to require all homes to be repainted in approved colors within 30 days, and surprise, the only approved contractor was her brother-in-law's company, charging 3 times the normal rate. Mom's fixed income couldn't handle another unexpected expense. That evening, as I comforted Mom and promised her everything would be okay, I noticed something odd through our kitchen window. Patricia was having another backyard meeting, but this time with people I'd never seen in our neighborhood before. They were passing around papers and pointing at different houses on what looked like a property map. I couldn't prove it yet, but something bigger was going on here. This wasn't just about garden gnomes and paint colors anymore. I rescheduled my Japan trip. My mom's house and our entire neighborhood needed me. Patricia thought she was dealing with a busy son who would just keep paying fines to avoid confrontation. She had no idea that I'd been quietly building a case against her, or that I had the resources to fight back in ways she couldn't imagine. As I watched her meeting through the window, my phone buzzed with a text from an old friend at the county records office. What he'd found about Patricia's past HOA dealings made my jaw drop. The moment I walked through Mom's front door, my heart shattered. There she was, sitting in her favorite armchair, hands shaking as she held a bright red notice. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and her beloved garden gnomes were lined up on the dining table like tiny soldiers about to be sent into exile. I tried my best to keep up, Mom whispered, her voice breaking. But my hands just won't cooperate anymore. She showed me her swollen fingers, twisted by arthritis. The final warning notice threatened to put a lien on her house, all because her shrubs were 2 inches taller than Patricia's arbitrary neighborhood standards. I sat down with Mom, looking through months of HOA violation notices. Each one was pettier than the last. The brick border around her flower bed was not the approved shade of red. Her wind chimes were causing noise disturbance. Even the bird feeder was deemed an unsightly attraction for wildlife. While comforting Mom, my phone buzzed with messages from neighbors. Patricia had been busy. She'd gone door to door with a PowerPoint presentation showing how Mom's neglected property was supposedly dropping everyone's home values by 15%. She'd even used photoshopped pictures making Mom's perfectly maintained garden look overgrown and wild. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how Patricia targeted Mom right after I left for my company's biggest deal overseas. The timing was too perfect. A quick social media search showed Patricia following my business news religiously. She'd even commented on articles about my company's growth, while simultaneously harassing my mother. The next morning, I made some calls. My company's sale for $89 million had just cleared, but I kept that quiet. Instead, I hired a professional landscaping team to document every inch of Mom's property. They took detailed measurements, photos, and videos, proving all her maintenance was well within the original HOA guidelines that Patricia had quietly changed without proper homeowner approval. But Patricia didn't waste any time. By afternoon, she'd called an emergency HOA meeting for the following week to discuss immediate action against property violations threatening community standards. She even hired security to block Mom from attending, claiming her presence would be disruptive. What Patricia didn't know was that I'd already spoken to 3 law firms specializing in HOA disputes, or that I'd pulled the property records for every house in the neighborhood, or that I'd requested every HOA financial record for the past 5 years. Most importantly, she had no idea that her perfectly timed harassment campaign had just picked a fight with someone who had the resources to dig deep, really deep, into every decision she'd ever made as HOA president. I watched through my mother's kitchen window as Patricia strutted down the sidewalk, measuring tape in hand, taking photos of Mom's rose bushes with a smug smile on her face. She was so busy documenting minor infractions that she didn't notice the private investigators, car parked across the street, or the camera capturing her every move. The HOA meeting was in 7 days. Patricia thought she was about to claim her biggest victory yet. But I had a feeling those 7 days would uncover exactly why she was so desperate to force my mother out of her home. Something wasn't adding up about her sudden interest in this particular property, and I was going to find out what it was, no matter the cost. I couldn't sleep that night after seeing Mom cry, so I started digging through every HOA document we had. Something felt off about how Patricia targeted certain neighbors but ignored others. The next morning, I made some calls to my old college friend Sarah, now a top real estate lawyer, and set things in motion. The first red flag popped up when we requested the HOA's financial records. Patricia tried to block us, claiming they were private, but Sarah knew better. These records were supposed to be available to all homeowners. What was Patricia hiding? I hired the best private investigators in town. They discovered Patricia had a special arrangement with her brother-in-law's construction company, Wheeler's Perfect Homes. Every time she found a violation, she forced homeowners to use his company for repairs, at 3 times the normal price. The more we dug, the worse it got. One elderly couple, the Andersons, lost their retirement savings after Patricia made them replace their entire roof for a single loose shingle. The Garcias had to take out a loan to redo their perfectly good driveway because it was the wrong shade of gray. Meanwhile, Patricia's best friend Susan had a rusty car sitting in her front yard for months, no violations there. The investigators found something even more shocking. Patricia was taking trips to Hawaii using HOA money. She'd been writing checks to herself from the community fund, claiming they were for emergency repairs that never happened. Over 3 years, she'd stolen more than $50,000 from our neighbors. I spent weeks building a case, gathering security camera footage, bank statements, and sworn statements from contractors who'd been threatened into keeping quiet. The whole time, Patricia kept harassing Mom about her garden, totally unaware of what was coming. Then came the breakthrough we needed. One of Patricia's former assistants reached out to me. She had copies of emails showing Patricia bragging about how she was cleaning up the neighborhood by forcing out older residents who couldn't afford her ridiculous fines. She specifically targeted people she thought couldn't fight back. I called an emergency meeting with the HOA board members, minus Patricia. When they saw the evidence, they were horrified. Many had suspected something was wrong but had been too afraid to speak up. As we talked, more stories came out. Patricia had been using HOA meetings to spy on neighbors, planning her next attacks based on who looked vulnerable. The final piece came together when we found proof that Patricia had changed HOA rules without proper votes, making up new regulations whenever she felt like it. She'd even forged signatures on official documents. I knew we had enough to stop her, but I wanted to make sure she could never do this to anyone else. I contacted local news stations, prepared to expose everything if the board tried to sweep it under the rug. Then I scheduled a meeting with the district attorney's office. This wasn't just mean behavior anymore. It was criminal. Just when we thought we had seen it all, my investigators found a connection between Patricia and 3 other HOAs in nearby towns. She'd been giving consulting advice on how to manage difficult residents. How many other communities had she poisoned with her tactics? The next HOA meeting was in 2 days. Patricia had no idea that her whole world was about to crash down. As I organized my evidence files that night, Mom called to tell me Patricia was at her door again, waving another violation notice and threatening to put a lien on the house. I smiled, knowing it would be the last time she ever harassed my mother. What Patricia didn't realize was that tomorrow's meeting wouldn't be about Mom's garden. It would be about her own crimes. And I had invited some special guests, the FBI's real estate fraud division. The morning of the HOA meeting felt different. My team of lawyers had prepared 3 large boxes of evidence, each one more damaging than the last. Walking into that community center, I saw Patricia sitting at her usual spot, wearing her usual smug smile. She had no idea what was coming. I started by showing everyone the property maps. Turns out, Patricia's prized rose trellis was actually 6 inches over her property line, a violation she'd been fining others for. The room got quiet. Then I pulled out the financial records. 5 years of selective enforcement, waived fees for her friends, and doubled fines for people she didn't like. The whispers started. But the real bombshell? The security footage of Patricia accepting cash from Bob's home. Repairs, the only contractor she'd approved for HOA violations. The same contractor who charged 3 times the normal rate and split the extra money with her. When the video played, someone in the back gasped. Patricia tried to interrupt, her face turning red. "This is ridiculous. I've only ever tried to protect our property values, but I wasn't done." I revealed the letters from elderly residents who'd been forced to take out loans to pay her ridiculous fines. The medical bills from Mrs. Johnson, who fell trying to clean her gutters after Patricia threatened to put a lien on her house. The room erupted. Neighbors started sharing their own stories. The Christmas lights they had to take down, the children's basketball hoops they were forced to remove, the garden beds they had to destroy. Years of pent-up frustration poured out. I laid out my plan. I'd already bought 4 properties in the neighborhood, giving me enough voting power to call for a special election. The law firm I hired had drafted new HOA bylaws that would prevent any future abuse. We'd have a resident review board for all violations, and special protections for elderly and disabled homeowners. Patricia stood up, shaking. "You can't do this!" "I've been president for 6 years. I know the rules." "That's the problem," I replied calmly. "You knew the rules too well, and you used them to hurt people." "Not anymore." The vote was unanimous. Patricia was removed as president. But that wasn't all. The district attorney's office was very interested in the evidence of embezzlement and kickbacks we'd uncovered. 3 weeks later, Patricia was facing criminal charges. We used the recovered funds to start a neighborhood assistance program, helping elderly residents with home maintenance. Mom's garden is thriving now, and her gnomes have multiplied. The new HOA board meets monthly to share cookies and actually help neighbors, not harass them. Last week, I saw Patricia loading a moving truck. Her precious white picket fence, the one she'd forced 5 other families to remove, had to come down under the new bylaws. As she drove away, Mom and I sat on the porch swing, drinking lemonade and listening to her wind chimes. "You know," Mom said, smiling at her garden gnomes, "sometimes the best revenge is just making things right." The next day, we got a call from a reporter. Turns out, similar HOA corruption cases were popping up all over the country. Our story had sparked a movement, and now other communities were fighting back too. Mom's garden gnomes had become a symbol of standing up to HOA bullies everywhere. Sometimes the biggest changes start with one person saying enough. Or in our case, with one retired teacher and her army of garden gnomes.
अच्छा, तो ये ना आज हमारे बाल बहुत ख़राब हुए हुए हैं। ये अब आप लोगों को दिखाता हूँ। जो हमारे बाल है ना जी, बहुत ही ख़राब हुए हैं। ये देखो, यहाँ से तूंत निकल गई है हमारे ना। हमने बाल कटिंग करवानी है, पर वो कटिंग के लिए टाइम नहीं मिल रहा मुझे। तो ये आप देख सकते हैं कितने ख़राब हो गए हैं बाल, बहुत बड़े बड़े हो गए हैं बाल मेरे। और ये देखें, बहुत ही ख़राब है बाल मेरे, और बाल भी बड़े हुए हुए हैं। मैंने ये साइड अभी कट नहीं करवाई, बहुत टाइम हो गया है, तो इनको भी कट करवाना है। ये आप लोग देख सकते हैं ये कितने बुरे हो गए हैं बाल मेरे, और ऊपर से भी मेरे बाल ख़राब हो गए हैं। तो आप लोग भी रिकमेंड करो कि मुझे क्या करना चाहिए, इन बालों को मैं कैसे सेट कर सकता हूँ, और ताकि इनको मैं सेट करूँ और मज़ा आए बाल इंजॉय करने का। तो ये मेरे बाल सेट नहीं हो रहे, आप लोगों से मुझे मशवरा चाहिए कि मैं इसको किस तरह सेट करूँ। तो ये आप लोग, मेरे बाल हैं जी, ये सेट नहीं हो रहे जी, और ये इसको हमने सेट करवाना है जी। ठीक है, तो आप लोग बताएं कि मैं इसे कैसे सेट करवा सकते हैं। थैंक यू।